Hear the wind blow, dear, hear the wind blow.
Joanna Moore's life could have been picture perfect, but it all unraveled right before her children's eyes. Her daughter once said, "We were often starving, shoeless, and ragged." But the breaking point came when the identity of Joanna's last boyfriend was revealed. All of this led to her chilling demise. Dorothy Joanne Cook's life was marked by tragedy from the very beginning. At just 7 years old, in America, Georgia, her world was shattered. Her mother and younger sister were killed in a car accident. Her father, who survived the crash, passed away before the year was out. In one cruel twist of fate, young Joanna had lost her entire family. What's worse is that this car accident wouldn't be the only one that marked her life. Orphaned and alone, Joanna found temporary solace with her grandmother, but the reprieve was short-lived. As her grandmother aged, she could no longer care for this young girl. Just when it seemed Joanna might be left adrift once more, a local family stepped in to adopt her. However, their generosity came with a peculiar condition. They wanted her to change her name from Dorothy to Joanna. This early upheaval set the stage for a life of instability and poor decisions. At the tender age of 16, Joanna made her first impulsive choice. She got married. The union with Willis Moore, another teenager, was doomed from the start. Before they could even celebrate their first anniversary, the marriage ended in divorce. While the relationship didn't last, it did leave Joanna with a new last name, Moore. Newly single and armed with a fresh identity, Joanna enrolled in Agnes Scott College. It was here that her striking beauty began to attract attention. Sensing an opportunity, she entered a beauty pageant and won the title of Miss Georgia. This victory opened doors she never imagined possible, leading her straight to the glittering world of Hollywood. In a scene straight out of a movie, Joanna attended a cocktail party where a studio producer spotted her. Impressed by what he saw, he offered her a screen test. Universal Studios found her intriguing and quickly signed her up. It seemed that Joanna Moore was on the fast track to stardom. But old habits die hard. Before she could even make her first feature film, Joanna rushed into another ill-fated marriage. This time, it was to fellow up-and-coming actor Don Orrick. Like her first marriage, this one barely lasted a year. It was becoming clear that Joanna's personal life may never gain stability. Just like her personal life, Moore's career was off to a rocky start. Her first leading role in the film noir Appointment with a Shadow was met with harsh criticism. The New York Times critic Richard W. Nason dismissed it, saying, "It had as much novelty and enchantment as a popcorn machine in the lobby." It was a crushing blow for the aspiring actress. Undeterred, Joanna continued to pursue her Hollywood dreams. She took on small roles in forgettable films like Slim Carter and Flood Tide. Frustrated by her lack of a breakthrough, she returned to the cocktail party scene, hoping to network her way into a better role. It was at one of these parties that she met Albert Zugsmith, a producer known for making B-movies. Zugsmith offered her a part in his next project, which turned out to be Touch of Evil, directed by the legendary Orson Welles. It seemed like Joanna's breakthrough had finally arrived. However, even this opportunity came with a price. Joanna, a natural blonde, was asked to dye her hair brown to differentiate herself from co-star Janet Leigh. It was a small sacrifice for what she hoped would be her ticket to stardom, but trouble followed Joanna onto the set. She inadvertently angered Welles by sitting in his chair, a major faux pas in Hollywood. To make matters worse, her co-star Charlton Heston developed a crush on her, leading to uncomfortable advances that she had to fend off. Despite the on-set drama, Joanna had high hopes for Touch of Evil, but at a sneak preview in Los Angeles, the film bombed. Even Heston declared it simply not a good picture. While Touch of Evil would be later recognized as a classic, at the time, it seemed like just another setback in Joanna's struggling career. Desperate for a leading role, Joanna took a significant step down from working with Orson Welles. She accepted the lead in Monster on the Campus, a B-grade horror movie about a professor who turns into a caveman after being exposed to prehistoric fish blood. It was hardly the stuff of Hollywood dreams. While her film career faltered, Joanna found more success on television. She became a popular guest star on shows like The Rifleman and Perry Mason. But even these roles came with their share of danger. During a scene for Route 66, what was supposed to be an act, getting her foot caught on a rock in the ocean, turned into a terrifying reality. The crew initially thought she was just an excellent actor, not realizing her calls for help were genuine. In 1962, Joanna finally got a role she could sink her teeth into. In Walk on the Wild Side, she played Miss Precious, a neurotic sex worker. The part generated more fan mail than any other role in her career. It seemed that Joanna had finally caught the attention of moviegoers and critics alike. Riding this wave of success, Joanna landed a role opposite Elvis Presley in Follow That Dream. While on screen their characters didn't end up together, off-screen was a different story. Years later, Joanna would reveal that during filming, Presley was so infatuated with her that he tried to break down her door. But like many aspects of Joanna's life, this affair ended in chaos.
That's smart. It's even wise. Anybody ever tell you you're very handsome?
Only girls.
When Presley moved on to their co-star Anne Helm, Joanna's reaction was extreme. She showed up at Presley's place, slurring her words and demanding to see him. When denied access, she claimed to have taken a handful of sleeping pills and to be pregnant with Presley's child. The incident ended up with Joanna in the hospital having her stomach pumped, with no signs of pregnancy. As her personal life spiraled, Joanna sought refuge in wholesome television. She landed a role as Nurse Peggy McMillan on The Andy Griffith Show. Audiences loved her, and Joanna enjoyed the organized, honest environment of the show. But her stint was cut short after just 4 episodes. Years later, the reason came to light. Joanna had been having an affair with Andy Griffith, who was married at the time. Just as her career seemed to be finding more stability, Joanna's life took another dramatic turn. She suddenly lost her hearing due to otosclerosis. Rather than give up acting, she learnt to lip read and had the director tap her on the shoulder instead of shouting action. A year later, an operation restored her hearing, just in time for a call from Walt Disney Pictures. Disney cast her in Son of Flubber, a sequel to The Absent-Minded Professor. The film was a huge hit, and Joanna's future in movies seemed bright. But once again, her personal life would derail her success. In 1963, Joanna met Ryan O'Neal, another actor making his living through TV guest appearances. Despite O'Neal being 7 years her junior, they quickly married, but their union was built on shaky ground. O'Neal had only proposed because Joanna was pregnant. Their daughter Tatum O'Neal was born just 5 months after the wedding. While they may have looked like the perfect family to outsiders, behind closed doors, their marriage was volatile. They fought constantly, their arguments fueled by Joanna's growing substance abuse problems. The situation worsened when O'Neal's career took off with a role in the primetime soap Peyton Place, while Joanna's career continued to decline. O'Neal later recalled finding Joanna, passed out in the bathtub, a glass of wine and a bottle of barbiturates within reach. Despite their troubled relationship, Joanna and O'Neal had a second child, Griffin, in 1964. But the new addition did nothing to salvage their marriage. By 1967, it was over, and she would go on to experience one tragedy after another. In the aftermath of their divorce, Joanna's life continued its downward spiral. Her substance abuse worsened to the point where she voluntarily gave up custody of her children to O'Neal, believing they would be better off with their father. She checked herself into a hospital for treatment, hoping to regain control of her life. But Joanna's decision to leave her children with O'Neal would have devastating consequences. Years later, both Tatum and Griffin would reveal the abuse and neglect they suffered at their father's hands. Tatum described O'Neal as a drug-addicted, abusive parent, while Griffin simply called him a narcissistic psychopath. When Joanna returned from treatment, she regained custody of her children, but her demons were far from exorcised. Tatum later described their life with their mother as one of neglect and poverty, saying she and her brother were often starving, shoeless, and ragged. But the most shocking aspect of Joanna's descent was her relationship with her last boyfriend, a 15-year-old boy, while she was 35. This inappropriate relationship exposed her young children to a world of partying and substance abuse. While Moore partied with her underage boyfriend, young Tatum took advantage of being unsupervised. Tatum, only 6 at the time, recalls wandering around the house, sipping from open bottles of alcohol left by her mother and her teenage boyfriend. Joanna's descent into addiction was a gradual but relentless process. What began as social drinking and occasional pill use to cope with the pressures of Hollywood quickly morphed into full-blown dependency. Her substance abuse not only affected her career, but also her ability to function as a mother and a human being. Tatum recalled finding her mother passed out on numerous occasions, surrounded by empty bottles and pill containers. The young girl often had to become the caretaker, trying to rouse her mother or clean up after her binges. This role reversal had a profound impact on Tatum's own development and would later contribute to her struggles with addiction. Joanna's addictions weren't limited to alcohol and pills. She reportedly experimented with various drugs, including cocaine and heroin, as her life spiraled further and further out of control. Her erratic behavior on set, mood swings, and frequent absences due to her substance abuse led to fewer and fewer job offers. The entertainment industry, once enamored with her beauty and talent, began to shun Joanna. Directors and producers were hesitant to work with an actress who was unreliable and often incoherent. This rejection only fueled Joanna's addictions, creating a vicious cycle of substance abuse and career decline. Despite multiple attempts at rehabilitation, Joanna struggled to maintain sobriety. Each time she would emerge from treatment, full of hope and determination, only to succumb to her addictions once again. The cycle of addiction, recovery, and relapse became a familiar and heartbreaking pattern in her life. Joanna's behavior put her children in constant danger. Tatum later revealed that her mother was on stuff all the time, and that various men Joanna brought into their lives were cruel and abusive, often beating Tatum and her brother. The final straw came when Joanna was arrested for driving under the influence with her children in the car. This incident led to her losing custody of Tatum and Griffin permanently. It was a devastating blow, marking the end of Joanna's life as a mother and accelerating her career's decline. As Joanna's star faded, her daughter Tatum's began to rise. At just 10 years old, Tatum won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress in Paper Moon. The cruel irony of Hollywood saw Joanna accepting financial support from the very child she had failed to protect. Joanna's life continued its downward trajectory. Her substance abuse led to multiple DUI arrests. She continued to get behind the wheel while under the influence, and the authorities continued to pull her over. Each arrest seemed to push her further into the depths of her addiction, with alcohol and pills becoming her only solace in a world that had once adored her. Eventually, the inevitable happened. She had a car crash that cost her 3 fingers. This accident, a direct result of her ongoing battle with addiction, served as an alarming physical reminder of the toll her lifestyle was taking on her body and mind. By the late 1970s, Joanna's career was in a full nosedive. With less money coming in, she had to accept financial support from her now successful daughter Tatum. Having your expenses paid by your child must have felt humiliating, but it didn't stop Joanna from making things even worse. Her addiction had ravaged her once beautiful features, leaving her almost unrecognizable from the starlet who had once captivated Hollywood. Despite this, Joanna continued to struggle with her demons, unable to break free from the grip of substance abuse that had defined so much of her adult life. In 1996, something descended on Joanna's life that was worse than any of her addictions: a diagnosis of lung cancer. And by November of the following year, the cancer had taken Joanna's life at just 63 years old.